Welcome to episode 3 of Auto Analysis. Today we're going to be talking about 3 cars that South Africa didn't get and why. Starting off with the BMW E30 M3. In the mid-1980s, BMW had to produce a homologation version of their Group A touring car, which they did extremely well in that racing division. BMW's M division was given the task, and the result was the E30 M3, also known as the first generation M3. M standing for Motorsport and 3 because it was based on the first generation 3 Series. I wonder how long it took them to come up with that. BMW had to produce 5,000 road-going versions of their race car, and on top of it they had to sell them within 12 months. At the end of its 5-year production, BMW sold 17,960 E30 M3s, of which none of them reached South Africa. The reason why South Africa didn't get any E30 M3s is because it was only produced in left-hand drive. But in the meantime, during the 80s, a group of mad engineers from South Africa were developing an homologation version of their Group M racing car. In 1985, the 333i was unveiled. They only produced 204 versions exclusively sold in South Africa. This meant that South Africa had their own version of the M3, and this one was much more rare. Later on, the 325iS was also produced as a homologation for the same racing division. The 333i and 325iS sported 6-cylinder engines from various other BMW models at the time, such as the 5 Series and the 7 Series. The difference is that the M3 sported an inline 4-cylinder engine, and despite this, all 3 models had about the same horsepower, which was give or take 200. The only exception was the M3 Evo 1 and 2 with 215 and 217 horsepower respectively, as well as the M3 Sport Evolution with the most horsepower sporting 235 horsepower. Given the popularity of E30s in South Africa and the Gusheshe for spinning, I think the M3 would have been a really popular car in South Africa. M3 would have been a lot more difficult to obtain and a lot more expensive, but yeah, I think collectors would have loved to have the M3 in South Africa. Moving on to car number 2 that South Africa didn't get, the Honda Civic Type R EK9. Most of the early Type R models were sold exclusively to Japan, such is the case with the first generation Civic Type R EK9. The naturally aspirated inline 4-cylinder V16B produced 182 horsepower and 160 Nm of torque. This might not seem like a lot, but if you consider that the first generation Type R only weighed 1.1 tons, it's plenty of power. Other goodies that enhanced the driving experience of the first gen Type R included a 5-speed manual transmission as well as a limited slip differential, which allowed for both front wheels to spin at the same time. This means that drivers could do burnouts such as this. This hot hatch was manufactured between 1997 and 2000. And if you know anything about the Cape Town car scene, the EK and the EG Civics are super popular here, and there's a huge cult following for them. Because of this, I think South Africa would have loved to have the first gen Type R, especially because if you look at later Type Rs that are sold in South Africa and how much we love them and how many of them were sold, I think the first gen would have been a welcomed addition to the South African automotive market. There isn't any clear reason as to why South Africa didn't receive the first gen Type R. However, my guess is that Honda wasn't really sure if there was a market for a hot hatch such as the Civic Type R in South Africa at the time. But yeah, besides this, we love the EK and the EG, and the Type R remains a dream car for Honda enthusiasts around South Africa. Alright, the third and last car on the list is one that you might have not heard of before. It is the Toyota Century second generation. So this ultra luxury sedan was designed for the Japanese market and was sold in obviously Japan and other European and Asian countries. The Century was the first Japanese car to feature a V12 engine. Other features that add to the luxury of this car include electronically operated rear curtains, rear seats that were electronically adjustable, as well as with the massage function, and soft closed doors, which is something you'll see in a Mercedes. So all these features might seem something that, like things you'd expect in a luxury car of today, but back in the 90s, these were cutting edge technologies to be in a Japanese car specifically. However, it would have been something you might have expected in German luxury cars at the time. This luxury sedan unfortunately never touched South African soil. Enthusiasts speculate that the reason for this is that there wasn't much appetite for a chauffeur-driven Japanese car outside of Japan. The very limited second-gen Centuries that were sold in Europe and Asia were mostly driven by Japanese diplomats. The good news is that all the models can be imported into other countries such as South Africa. However, I don't think that we've ever received any Centuries. I know a few have been imported into America though. I think the Century would have been not as popular as the Type R or the M3, but I definitely think that for someone looking for an ultra reliable luxury car and something that's a little bit more understated than a Rolls-Royce or a Maybach, I think this would have been quite popular amongst that very niche market, especially given the love that South Africans have for Toyotas. The Century is Toyota's most luxurious car, and they plan to break off from the Toyota brand and rival the likes of Maybach and Rolls-Royce. The bad news is that unfortunately, we will more than likely never receive a Century model, current or future models, in South Africa, despite what enthusiasts and automotive journalists say. In my opinion, these three cars would have been super popular in South Africa. Some more than others because of their monetary value, but I think despite them not being in South Africa, South Africans still have a huge appreciation for these cars and ones similar to them, such as the E33 series and different versions of the Civic Type R. The Century, like I said, is much more of a niche market, but I think it would have been cool to see a Century rolling down the street and featuring at car shows and so forth. So those are my top 3 cars that South Africa never received and why. Please feel free to let me know which one is your favorite and which one you would have come to South Africa if you had the choice. And yeah, leave a comment in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video and if you learned something, then please leave a like, and hope to catch you on the next one.